Thank you.
Danny, thanks so much for being here, Mr. Ambassador. It's great to have you. I want to start by asking you about the part of your job that we don't see on the news or on the videos of UN meetings. What is going on behind the scenes of the UN to try to persuade other countries not to support this push for Palestinian statehood that gives a reward to them for the atrocities of October 7th and only strengthens Hamas? What are we not seeing? What's the story that isn't being told?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I have many friends here, and I'm happy to be here after a very intense week at the UN. But before we begin, I want to set the record straight about the walkout that you mentioned in the General Assembly. That was a show. It was orchestrated by the Palestinian delegation. The people who walked out were not ambassadors. They were staffers from hostile missions that were brought in. The Prime Minister spoke at 9 a.m. He was the first speaker. So they came in order to get out. And when you look at the numbers, and I've counted them, more than 100 ambassadors stayed in the room and listened to the Prime Minister. And those who left, I looked at those countries, they better stay and learn the fact that the Prime Minister described. And when they left, I told them, get out and don't come back. And I meant it. So a lot of things happening at the UN behind the scenes, Jonathan, and we don't see it. Even in the last few days, we saw the charade of leaders coming and condemning Israel, but then quietly they would come and discuss the real issues with me. And I will give you an example. When President Macron came with his great idea about recognizing a Palestinian state, he put in the statement, in the proclamation, that Hamas will not be in Gaza. And when I asked the ambassador from France, how exactly are you going to achieve it? Are you going to send the resolution to Hamas? Or maybe you're going to send an envoy from the Elysee Palace to Gaza? It's on our shoulder, the duty to actually make it happen. And that's what we are doing now. And I think we see the gap between the declarations and reality. But, when you sit with them one-on-one, they speak tachlis. They understand that, they can give a show because they have domestic interests, or they want to appease someone in the Arab world. But if they want to get something done, we have to speak tachlis. And I believe that's what will happen tomorrow, when Prime Minister Netanyahu will step for the first time into the Oval Office to meet President Trump. They will sit down and speak tachlis.
Fair enough. How close is the cooperation between your office and that of the American mission at the UN? Are you working in tandem? And has that cooperation increased, shall we say, in the last several months?
So we work closely. It's my second term. Hi, Gary. I'm the only Israeli to come back to the UN. Don't ask me why after this week. But
I think the term is recidivism, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And I worked with many U.S. ambassadors, with Samantha Power, with Nikki Haley, and many more. And I met Ambassador Mike Waltz, and I want to congratulate him for finally assuming the position. He started a few days ago. And I told him, Mike, you are a great friend of Israel, but you're gonna, deal with many issues. And sometimes, when I sit with my colleagues at the U.S. mission, I tell them, you spend so much energy on us, and we are grateful for that. So we work very closely together, and we are grateful for the bond that we have. And I would say that, you didn't ask me directly, but I'm very direct. You know me for like 30 years, I think. And I have many friends here that I know for many years. I'm very direct. So if you want to ask about the difference between the administration, I will answer that. We got the support also from President Biden at the beginning of the war. But for the Biden administration to come and cast the veto, it was very hard to do it. When you have the administration of President Trump, you see the pride of the US representative walking into the hall of the Security Council, casting the veto against the ridiculous resolution, and then actually posting it all over. So that is the difference.
We see, those of us who follow the UN, because it's our job, a great deal about the Israel bashing there, which is real, and the one-sided anti-Israel resolutions that are passed at the UN and constantly debated disproportionately while ignoring real tragedies elsewhere. But what are the victories that Israel has won at the UN in recent years? What are your achievements, and how big are they, and what are their significance?
So it's hard to speak about victory at the UN nowadays. Since October 7th, we play defense. We push back all the resolutions. And by the way, also what we saw last week, there was no victory for the Palestinians with the recognition. Nothing there. It's empty. No one recognized the Palestinian state. It didn't come to the Security Council. It didn't come to a vote in the General Assembly. It was a show. And I think for us it's important that maybe they will continue with the show and the circus, and we will focus on substance. And I think we have achieved a lot, in the UN in terms of developing relationship with many countries. But now we're still in a war, and we have to make sure that we bring back the hostages. That's our priority. When I wake up every morning, I think about the hostages, how we bring them back, and how we defeat Hamas. And when I hear all the noise and all the pressure, I'm focused. We have to be focused on achieving those two goals. And then I can assure you, Jonathan, we will overcome, we will mend fences with so many countries. That will be the easy part. It will happen very fast. But we cannot allow any hostage, and I'm talking about those who are alive and those who are dead, to stay in Gaza. And we cannot allow Hamas to stay there and regroup against Israel.
Amen. Let me follow up on that a little bit, in that you speak about how when you speak privately with the other ambassadors, the other people at the end, representatives of the UN, that they sing a different tune. Did they know, like everybody in this room knows, that the Palestinian state that they're talking about is a myth? It's fiction. It isn't a real country. It isn't a real government. And to the extent that it is, it's Hamas. It's not, this mythical state they're talking about. Did they know it, or did they pretend about that even in private?
I think they know better. They're not stupid. I think they're playing a game. When President Macron gave an interview last week, and he said there is no Hamas in the West Bank, seriously, give me a break. You give me a name of a village or a city in the Judea and Samaria, and I will give you the name of the head of the Hamas there. And we know what happened. And unfortunately, only today, another terror attack, and a soldier was killed. Every day we're dealing with terror attacks in Judea and Samaria. So I think he knows the facts. He's not stupid. But for him, it's a play. He ignores the reality, and he comes and he puts the show. And I think for us, we have to realize that many leaders, they have domestic interests. They have problems, or they have elections, and they come to the UN, and it's a platform to get diversion, to divert the issues, for good or bad. I'll give you another example. I met a leader from a very important Muslim country, and I told him, why I cannot come and visit you in your country? Why we are meeting in somewhere else? And he told me, Danny, for us, when we speak about the Palestinian issue or about Jerusalem, it's a great way to get votes for the campaigns. So I don't want you to be seen around us. And I think the same with the UN. Many of those leaders, they come to speak about, Palestine against Israel, not because they really care about it, because it serves their domestic interests.
Yeah. Now, you've been at the cutting edge of the information battle that we've talked so much about today, and which is at the heart of what JNS is about. And for many years, it's been a perennial theme for as long as we've known each other, which, as you've said, has been a few decades, about the failures of Hasbara, Israeli public advocacy. Supporters of Israel are always saying that, it's not being done enough, Israel's failing, it's always wrong. But as important as that may be, there's also the argument that there is no persuading those who have been driven by toxic left-wing ideology into believing blood libels about genocide, and that it's just far more important for Israel to win the battles on the ground against Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, rather than worrying about the fickle opinions of Western audiences or UN members. What do you think about what the priority has to be when it comes to the information battle, how well we in the Jewish world are doing, and what's the most important thing we should be doing?
Well, I hear every day the blood libels. Sitting in the Security Council, and tomorrow I have another one for 3 hours, blaming us for weaponizing starvation. They come up with ridiculous allegations every week. But it's a clear cut for me. I prefer to have control over the high ground, than the PR ground, if we have to choose. Ideally, we can win both of them, but if I have to choose, I prefer to be where we are today, where the IDF troops are around Gaza, and we're showing our might, where we were on October 8th, that Macron came to Israel and said, I will send troops from France to Israel to fight Hamas. Seriously. We don't want anyone to send troops to Israel. The days that Jews were massacred and there was nobody to protect them are over. Today we have the IDF. We have the capability to defend ourselves, and that's exactly what we are doing now. Having said that, we have to improve, and I know many T-Line, many great friends here are fighting the fight, to improve where we stand today, and I think we should do a better job. But we have to realize that at the end of the day, it's more important if we get the hostages out of Gaza. It's more important if we defeat Hamas. And then, yes, today it's toxic, what we see in social media, the demonstrations. But at the end of the day, we will prevail. We will overcome this noise and the hostility. But we cannot lose this war. So for me, and I tell it to my colleagues in Jerusalem, I speak with all the ministers almost every day, tell them, listen, don't worry about condemnations or demonstrations. You focus on the goal of defeating the enemy. And that's why I think we have to be strong. And I know that many of you, we all sacrificed a lot in the last 2 years, and it has been painful, but we are strong, we are not broken, and I think we're getting very close to the point where we can declare a victory.
Amen. The sense that we get of the UN, I think, was summed up in something that you spoke out about last week, the scheduling of a meeting about Gaza on Rosh Hashanah, so that Israel wouldn't be there to defend itself. How frustrating is it for you personally to deal with an institution that is so deeply compromised by not just bias, but open anti-Semitism? And do you ever feel that, and this is something I think I know a lot of Americans feel, it's like, what are we even doing there? What is the point of the UN? That was kind of a question that President Trump seemed to be asking. And is it worth it? I mean, should Israel keep going on granting the UN the legitimacy by being there itself that is provided by the presence of a representative of the Jewish state in an institution that seems so compromised by anti-Semitism?
So, Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke yesterday about the hypocrisy and the double standard at the UN. I'll give you an example. When we attacked Hamas terrorists in Doha, there was a special session of the Security Council, and almost everyone condemned us. And I looked at the ambassador, then I told them, when the US attacked Pakistan, and the ambassador was sitting there, your country, everyone praised the US for getting rid of Osama bin Laden. And when the UK, I told the UK ambassador, when your country took care of terrorists in Iraq and Syria, everyone praised the UK. And I looked at the ambassador of France, and I told him, when your country killed terrorists in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Chad, and other places, it was great. But when we do that, all of a sudden, violation of international law, and they bring all these allegations. It is hypocrisy. But I still think we have to be in the room. I know it's not popular. I know if I had a vote here, you'll say, let's get out of this place. I know the feeling. Every day I feel it. But I think it's a mistake, frankly speaking, because if you are not in the room, your allies will not fight for you. When I come to the room and I speak with the US ambassador and the ambassador from the Czech Republic, or President Millet, which Prime Minister, I was in the meeting 2 days ago, they will not do the work for us. And also when you are not in the room, it's much easier to spread the lies and to isolate Israel and to delegitimize Israel. So I think we should be there. Even when we know that, they put the meeting on Rosh Hashanah, and they use double standards and all the tricks. And I'm not talking about what President Trump said about the escalators and other things, but we know that they're not playing a fair game, but we still have to be in the room. And that's what I tell my staff. We go to every meeting, we go to every debate, we participate in every vote, no matter the result.
Finally, you're here, you're Israel's ambassador to the UN, but you're also a symbol for American Jews. You're there fighting for the Jewish people. What do you want to tell American Jews in general at this time of tremendous crisis and anti-Semitism? What do you think is the single most important thing they need to do in order to stand up with Israel, to stand up for themselves?
Well, I know that, some, maybe many are very tired, after the beginning of the war. It's the longest war ever, but we are together. We are together in this war. We are in pain together, but we're also going to win together. And I think we're getting there. We're getting there. And I think the strength and the support and the love that Israel received for the diaspora, and you are paying a price, with anti-Semitism, with violence. Mark, you should come to the U.S. mission to the UN. I don't know why, but the Palestinian demonstrations are not in front of my office on 2nd Avenue. They shifted the demonstrations to the U.S. Delegation. And same we here, sometimes you feel the pressure more than the people in Israel. And I know that, you feel that. But I believe that we are strong, we are together, and we will prevail.
Ambassador Danny Danon, the man in the room where it's happening in the UN, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.